Is this thing on?
Are you ready, Matt?
You're listening to Box Office Bingers
with Matt Diaz and Ernesto Santos.
Good evening, folks. We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you.
We know each other. He's a friend from work.
Box Office Bingers.
And the only way that I know how to do it is to find you a bloody good dump.
He's my friend. I don't have friends. I got family. I can do this all day.
You know, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Box Office Bingers. Ernesto, we have a great episode for everybody today. Last week, we came out strong. We had a long episode reviewing Inside Out 2. We had TJ on, first time on the show, had a great time. If you haven't listened to that episode, do yourself a favor, go ahead and do that. We had a wealth of conversation about a lot of different things. But this week is a brand new week, and tell our lovely listeners, I think I need to come up with something different, because I always mess up between lovely and listeners. I did it again, every single time. I got to come up with a different system.
What about bobbers or bingers?
Tell the people. Bingers, tell the bingers.
Tell the bobbers.
Tell the bobbers of bingers. Tell the bobbers, the bobbers of bingers. Bingers, tell the people what we are reviewing this week.
Well, hello, people. This week, I don't know where you wanted me to go with that, so I'm just kind of going with it. Anyways, this week we are reviewing The Bikeriders, the 2023 crime drama film written and directed by Jeff Nichols, stars Jodie Comer, Austin Butler, Tom Hardy, Michael Shannon, Michael Faith, and Norman Reedus. Inspired by the photo book of the same name, Danny Lyon depicts the lives of the Vandals of the MC, the fictional version of the Outlaws Motorcycle Club founded in the late 60s. Very interesting movie. I'm interested to hear your take on this.
Yeah, and this also just already behind the scenes with this movie. This was supposed to be released last year because you said, if you paid attention, Ernesto just said this was a 2023 film. Technically, It is because the movie was completed and it was supposed to be out last fall, but because of the writers and actors strike that was last year, 20th Century Studios decided to hold back on the movie. But not only that, for some reason, they decided to not even release the movie at all. And they ended up selling it throughout this process to Focus Features, which is owned by Universal. 20th Century Studios is owned by Disney. And so Disney ended up selling it off to Universal under Focus Features, and then Focus decided to wait until this summer to release it. So I think part of the conversation maybe, when eventually we get to it, is, was there a reason why Disney sold it off to Universal instead of just holding on to it? To me, that seemed like an odd choice to make, considering that this movie was on the really, really early contenders for the Oscars. Like, it was being looked at for Oscar contention. And instead of Disney pushing there, they decided to just not release it altogether. And then Jeff Nichols, he's responsible for Mud, Midnight Special, and Loving. So three movies that are very drama heavy for sure, all have a unique different style. And I think his next film also offers a unique style that I don't think he's done in his other films. So yeah, definitely worth the conversation that we're going to have later on in the show. But if you don't mind, Ernesto, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, well, I was just going to bring up another point because we're doing something new this week. We're going to be reviewing the first two episodes of House of Dragon. This is our first time doing this. Oh, well, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase. First time in a long time doing this. Actually committing to a series and watching it week to week. We're going to give it a shot again. Mm-hmm. I've got a good feeling about this. One.
Yeah, this one. I mean, it's interesting because, like, I explained this last week, that I've been I've always binged the Game of Thrones series, even the first season of House of Dragon. So this is the first time I'm going into week to week. And I will say that probably because I'm watching it and the internet knows that, and you know how the internet works. Like now I'm getting references from season 2. I did not before, and then I did after I finished watching the first 2 episodes. And I feel like now I'm part of the community that I wasn't before, because I was avoiding it, and I was like, I want nothing. Now I get those memes where I don't know if you see the memes where it's like,
I'm getting them heavy.
Spoilers without context. I get those all the time where it's like you have like these 4 random photos that doesn't really mean anything, but if you've seen the episode, you know exactly what it is. But if you didn't see the episode, it's not really spoiling for you unless you put 2 and 2 together. But I've been getting those recently. It's like, oh, okay, the internet knows I've started.
I might start reposting some of it because there's some really good ones. Because since I've started liking them and been seeking them out, now Instagram has suggested them to me, and even from this past week, I saw some real good ones.
Yeah, the meme game for this show has always been good, but you know
they're coming in real strong.
Yeah, no kidding. Actually, before we get started, though, when we get into the news, can I talk to you about my Bikeriders experience in the movie theater? That has nothing to do with the movie, and I don't want to like deter at the movie with my review from my particular experiences. I know we typically wait for the review, but I kind of want to keep them separate. So I don't want, you know what I mean? So so I went to the theater, and I noticed that at 1 p.m. on a Sunday afternoon, this theater was packed, Ernesto. Packed. Let me tell you, there's no seats available. It was packed. I wasn't expecting it. I was like, for the Bikeriders? Must be a bunch of old people in here. I'm just saying. This like they said the movie you bring your family to, so there's got to be a whole bunch of older people. So there's a seat, right? H1. All right, like second row from the top, whatever. So I select that seat. I was like, I don't like sitting next to people in the theater. Try to get yourself away from it, but it's a it's packed house. You do what you got to do, right? Mm-hmm. I wasn't switching the time, so I get up there. Seat's already taken. So, someone else is sitting in it, and I was like, all right, Matt, what are you gonna do? You're gonna fight this old lady, or are you just gonna pick another seat, right? And so I decided to be the better person. He's like, you know what? I don't need this. It's 1 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon. I don't need this today. I'm just going to go into the handicap section where the seats don't typically get filled. They don't typically get filled in that moment. So I go down in the handicap section, pick my seat. See an older woman comes by. She's like, do one of these. It's like, I can't find my seat. And so I was like, I look over and it's like, damn it. And so, and before we move on with the story, I looked in the app to see what seats were not taken. Of course. And I sat in those seats, right? So I get there, none of those, except for one seat, none of those seats were taken up, right? And I probably got it maybe 10 minutes after the trailer started, So like maybe 10 more minutes left of trailers and we're good to go. They probably close it off, movie starts. So anyway, old lady comes in, she looks at me and she goes, is this 5 and 6? And I go, yeah. She's like, okay, that's my seat. It's like, no worries. I get up, move over to seat number 3, right? 2 over, right? And then also this is the handicap section, so you have that big gap in the middle, and so now I'm in the corner, right? Literally, you know the advertisement for like in your case it would be Regal when AMC. Like AMC, like, hey, come sign up for whatever. Regal has the same thing. So the Regal stuff, like their promotions were coming up. Have an old man coming up. Like I see him and I was like, damn it. And he's like, hey man. And before he even said anything else after hey man, I was like, don't worry about it. So I get up now. This is now my 3rd attempt to try to sit down in a seat. So then I get up again, get myself over to the 2nd row from the screen on the way corner in the edge. There was like 5 seats that were available. And then like half that row was already full. The other half was empty. So I just planted myself in the corner. I was like, no one's sitting here. No one's got to be sitting here. No. Eventually, that's the end of the story. No one sat here, but okay. I got like a good side profile on a big ass screen of this movie the entire time. So that's my story with the Bikeriders. Like somebody took my seat. I tried to be the better person. I wasn't willing to fight some old lady. Also, even better to the story was that as I was sitting in now my 2nd seat, there was an older gentleman who kicked 2 ladies out in his seat And he was like, well, this is why we have assigned seat. They had like a small altercation. They ended up leaving and going to another seat. And I was like, people, you guys are easily 50 plus in here. What are you doing? I just saw Inside Out last week. Everyone was well behaved. Bunch of kids all sat down, be quiet, watched a movie, sat in the seats that we were assigned to.
Yeah, I bet they were sitting in their assigned seats. Just, everybody wants to see Austin Butler and Tom Hardy, I guess. All these old people.
But they weren't sitting in the right seat. They're just picking any other seat they want to sit in.
Sometimes certain people just want to do what they want. And they don't care.
God.
It's their world, and we're just living in it.
I know.
That's all that matters.
Oh my! I was so frustrated. So frustrated. One of the downsides of going to the theater, and I love going to the theater, but sometimes just a little aggravating. Anyway, that's just a little piece of that story.
Do you feel better?
Yeah, I'm just getting it out there. Yeah, I do feel better. Thank you. Thank you for listening, Ernesto.
You're welcome. I'm glad I could be an ear for you.
Yeah, just here to vent. Anyway, so we're going to be diving into our spoiler review of the Bikeriders a little bit later on in the show. But of course, before we get into that, we're going to be talking about what we've been watching. We're going to be talking about House of Dragon. But first and foremost, we're going to talk about some entertainment news and just breaking news. As we typically do sometimes, we get some nice juicy news right before we start recording, and this is one of them. I'm reading it. I didn't even have time to Bruce up the wording here. I'm reading it straight from the Variety article. So the Green Lantern's light is officially ready to shine again. HBO has officially picked up Lanterns, the first live-action series created expressly for DC Studios under co-chairman, co-CEOs James Gunn and Peter Safran. The series has been given an 8-episode straight-to-series order by HBO, with Chris Mundy, the showrunner behind True Detective, Night Country, and Ozark, serving as showrunner and executive producer. Also on board, David Lindelof. Yeah. That name sounds familiar because he is the executive producer and show creator of Watchmen and The Leftovers, as well as Tom King, who did Mr. Miracle and Supergirl. They will also serve as executive producers and co-write Lanterns with Mundy. So they're also writing certain episodes. Warner Brothers TV is producing with DC Studios and HBO. The show is based off the DC comic Green Lanterns. The series will follow Hal Jordan and John Stewart, two members of the Green Lantern Corps, an intergalactic team charged with defending a specific realm of the cosmos from evil through the use of rings they bestow that bestow array of superhuman powers. Per the log line, new recruit Stewart and Lantern legend Jordan. Per the logline, new recruit Stewart and Lantern legend Jordan are two intergalactic cops drawn into a dark Earth-based mystery as they investigate a murder in the American heartland.
Yeah, I'm excited.
That was a lot.
What's really exciting for me is, and I guess I missed this part when we were kind of talking about it before. Obviously, very excited for David Lindelof. Mm-hmm. The Leftovers, that show is incredible, an incredible HBO series. But Tom King, I guess I missed that part, but comic book creator, like, he's written some of my favorite things. That's who I went and met him when he was at MegaCon just a couple months ago. So that's really exciting that he's on board, because out of all the comic book creators, he is by far my favorite. So I'm very excited to see what he's going to be what he's going to bring to this. They've got a great team. This is going to be, I think when this show releases on HBO, I will most definitely be watching this week to week.
What's crazy about this, that first of all, when I read this, I was like, well, this show isn't coming to Max. I feel like that DC Studios is being primed as a Max original, but I guess it really doesn't matter. At HBO, Max, it's all pretty much the same thing at this point. So I thought that was interesting that it's going to HBO, but also, man, heavy hitters on the executive producer front.
Oh yeah,
you got James Gunn is obviously, like, he greenlit the project, so he's going to be involved. But like Chris Mundy, David Lindelof, are you kidding me right now? Like Ozark, Ozark, Watchmen, Leftovers, like those are deep shows they got going on.
Shows that are known for their writing, known for their cinematography. So let's go.
Yeah.
DCEU, but it also shows the difference in their projects that they're going to be putting out. And not everything's going to be the same tone. There are going to be certain things that are like this, just based off the names, I would assume is going to be a much more mature, dark, True Detective, The Leftovers. We're talking deep, ethereal, mind-bending shows that really test you psychologically. That's really that's my expectation for this. But we'll see.
Yeah,
I'm excited either way.
I think Watchmen really showed us.
Very true.
Like, it was one of the show that kind of showed us that, like, here's a superhero show, but like that's on the back burner. Like, yeah, these people have powers, but there is so much more going on than you being your average superhero show.
Yes.
And it seems like they're doing the same thing with Lanterns. To me, when James Gunn, I believe now over a year now, had announced what his DC projects were going to be. We knew about there was going to be like a Green Lantern show in the works. We knew that it was going to follow what we were originally told, at least from my understanding, that they were going to be following different lanterns, almost like an anthology series. Like, we were going to go, each episode would be a different lantern. Now it seems like that we're focusing on the two main ones, Hal Jordan and John Stewart, with Jordan being a kind of like the one that's been around for a while, and John Stewart being, all right, did I read that correctly? I think I said, yeah, John Stewart being like the new recruit, and
Hal Jordan being the legend that he is.
Yes, like he's more or less the old timer. Lantern Jordan. Yes. So Hal Jordan is like almost like, if we're looking at this as a buddy cop, he's the one that's been around for a while. You have a new recruit in John Stewart. So I think this, for me, this log line really this intrigues me more than like every episode being an anthology series. So it looks like over the year, they were able to fine tune what this show can be and what maybe more people wanted, and throwing out some ideas, and like you said, let's go. This sounds really, really cool. It's been so long since we've seen Green Lanterns portrayed on any screen, with the exception of animated. So I think it's about time they get their due. Like, I know, a lot of people shit on the Green Lantern movie with Ryan Reynolds, but like, let's all get over that. And even Ryan Reynolds did, because now he's coming out with Deadpool and Wolverine. So like, he's long in the past with that one, but like, yeah, it's been way too long since we've seen the Green Lantern out there. So I'm happy to see that. It seems like we're gonna get a really good show.
And it's very clear that this is not going to be that. Like,
right, it's not going to be
the Ryan Reynolds. So I'm like, let's go. I'm very, very exciting news this week.
Yeah, and also, again, we've been speaking highly about James Gunn, and every announcement that he's made so far seems like he is fine-tuning his selections, picking the right people for the job, picking the right tone to launch the DC universe in the way that he sees fit. And so far, he's making some great decisions on the end. We haven't seen anything out of it just yet, or it's going to be very soon. I know the Creature Commandos animated series is coming at some point this year, if not early next year, to HBO, I believe, or Max, one of the two. And then obviously the first movie is going to be James Gunn directing Superman. And then after that, we have Supergirl. And then obviously shortly after, we have the series. And so, like, we've been waiting, for a little bit, but at least by the end of this year or in 2025, the ball's going to be rolling. And I can't wait to see what he has what in store for us.
Absolutely.
But anyway, with that, we're moving on to another property that has some massive success. Following the massive success of Inside Out 2, Peter Docter, the chief creative officer of Pixar Animation Studios, confirmed in an interview that an Inside Out spin-off series will be coming to Disney Plus in spring 2025. Docter revealed that the series is already finished and will focus on the movie studio that makes Riley's dreams. Docter explained, in the first film, remember when we go to Dream Productions to see how Riley's dreams are made, it semi-explains why they're so weird. We've continued the exploration of the power of dreams and how they affect us in our waking life. I think this is a really cool concept.
Absolutely.
for an Inside Out series. I mean, they could have gone in many different directions, but I feel like with this, they have a lot more freedom to be creative about it, and focus on the dream world rather than maybe, but still being within ourselves without also interrupting anything that happened with Inside Out 1 and 2. This can live on its own, and if it does well, it could go off for many seasons. It feels like an anthology series in a way where each story can just be different. This could be a series of shorts. We really don't know. But either way, I like the idea that we can continue the Inside Out. We can expand the world of Inside Out through this series.
Yeah, this is fantastic news. I think Disney is really finding that they can expand this Inside Out universe in so many different ways with everybody's focus on mental health and just the idea of the exploring the mind and you giving us something that we can break down very simply to children to help them understand these nuances of the mind. Like we saw with the second movie and whatever project they come out, they seem to be able to hit something that settles with the individual who watches the movie. I feel like there's so much to get from this property that this is fantastic. I mean, this is great news. Great news.
Yeah, I think this is a great direction for it, and kind of like the fact
different.
that this is already done. It is something different. I think it's crazy the fact that this is already done, and they're probably waiting. Like, oh, we're gonna let the success of Inside Out have its moment.
It's probably gonna be fun.
And then, yeah, and then we have to wait a whole another, probably, if they said spring, probably March, April, maybe even June, maybe a whole year before we see that. But to me, it's crazy that they say it's already done. If it was up to me, I would kind of ride off the momentum and wait till you put it on Disney Plus. So maybe in a couple months, when Inside Out 2 is on Disney Plus, you release this at the same time. But I don't make the decisions. They said spring 2025. I'm sure there's a reason for it.
But when Inside Out 2, Inside Out 2 will already be out. But will already be out on Disney Plus, hopefully by that point. But when it does come out, then people will go back and rewatch those shorts or watch them for the first time after you watched the movie and said, what do you want to watch next? They said, oh, there's Inside Out shorts. Let's watch those.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, they probably know what they're doing. They want to spread out the love, and people are still going to go out to see this movie. And while we're on the topic of Inside Out 2, I just want to comment on a previous conversation we had last week of their box office success, because holy moly, this movie is killing it in the box office right now. At the time of this recording, the movie has made $356 million domestically, an additional $372 million internationally, with a grand total of $728.9 million worldwide. I think it's easy to say that this movie is on its way to $1 billion, and so today is Tuesday, so just in 10 days, and realistically, just in 8 days, it was able to become the highest grossing movie of 2024 so far. That's insane. That we're halfway through the year. Dune was the previous record holder for this year, I believe, with 711 million, I believe. And then within 8 days, Inside Out 2 is like, thank you very much. We're here now. We're holding that number one spot. And so, yeah, and again, this is, we said it last week, this is probably going to be on its way to $1 billion. Now I think it's very clear that it's going to steamroll its way to $1 billion. I think we also talked about it last week that I think Inside Out 1 kind of landed around 800 million, somewhere around there. And it's already almost doing that within the first 2 weeks of its release. So
it's just an amazing
congratulations.
Movie. It's just an incredible
It really is. It really is, and it's like I said last week, this is a huge win for Pixar, if they really needed it, and I'm glad that this was the movie that was such a great movie that they were able to start shining and being on top again, and so it's well deserved for all the love that it's been getting, and yeah, so we might be on our way to the first $1 billion movie, but it's crazy for me to it's crazy to think that within 8 days, it became the highest grossing movie of 2024 already. Not a lot of movies can probably be in competition with that. I think, like I said, Deadpool and Wolverine might get there. Despicable Me might have a chance. Despicable Me 4. Yeah, there's a few contenders that might, rival it, but let Inside Out 2 have its moment just for a little bit.
Oh, I think it's gonna hold on for a little bit. I don't know. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard to beat that one. Like, I don't see Despicable Me 14 or 17, whatever one they're coming out with.
4. They're on 4.
I was being an asshole. I know.
The only reason why I say Despicable Me 4 might be a contender because Despicable Me 3 is a $1 billion movie. So I don't want to underestimate the power of the Minions because people love them.
That's true. That's true.
So we'll see. But right now, Inside Out 2, let it keep its claim to fame. Also, I believe it was also one of the few second week films. I think there's only 7 in history that was able to manage to hit $100 million in its second week. So like it opened to 152, and then in its second week it made an additional $100 million. I think only 7 films ever was able to be in the 3-digit number in its second weekend of release. And so now Inside Out 2 is also there. And also, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I could be getting my numbers wrong, but it only had like a 32 or 35% decrease from the first weekend, which is like a really, really small number. So it really got people in for the second week as well and not dropping that far at all. So anyway, yeah, all good stuff all around. And I'm sure this is not the last time we're going to be talking about Inside Out 2.
Absolutely. Moving on. Atomic Monster and Blumhouse are developing a Megan spinoff film titled Soulmate. It's set to expand on the Megan universe. The film centers on a man who acquires an artificially intelligent android to cope with the loss of his recently deceased wife. In an attempt to create a truly sentient partner, he inadvertently turns a harmless love bot into a deadly soulmate. The film is described as being in the tradition of 90s domestic thrillers, but with a modern erotic technological twist. Kate Dolan, the writer-director behind 2021's You Are Not My Mother, will co-write and direct the film and is slated to hit theaters January 2nd, 2026, just a few months after Megan 2.0 hits theaters, June 25th of 2025. I think that this is exciting. I think we're getting a thriller franchise that's not the same thing. So like we are getting the direct sequel to this, but the fact that they're able to find other avenues that's original, I think is fantastic. Let's get more original stories. That's different. That also plays into what people are afraid of. Like a lot of people are afraid of AI. So let's see a scary AI movie.
Yeah, I think it's crazy how, like, in my opinion, how quickly this franchise is growing. Megan was like a breakout hit. I don't think a lot of people were expecting it to be this popular when it came out in January of last year. And now we have obviously a release date that's not coming out till next summer. But I think to your point, I do agree that like they're already thinking of ways to expand on this universe, and it's actually moving forward. And so I don't think a lot of franchises can say that within like a 3-year period, they were able to get 3 movies off the ground from an original idea, just like that. And I'm sure part of the draw to maybe Blumhouse is that movie wasn't expensive to make. And so they're probably coming up with original ideas with a cheap price tag, expecting a huge return off of an already popular growing franchise.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah. So I applaud them for coming up with new ways. And obviously now this is becoming a franchise. So like it's based off the original idea, but like now we're getting sequels from it. But Soulmate does sound original in its own right. So yeah, I'm here for it. I like it. I don't remember seeing You Are Not My Mother. I don't think I saw that movie.
I know. I've never seen it. Yeah.
But obviously it's a first-time director, so this will be the second time director. So definitely getting some young talent in there, and see what they can do with a semi-popular IP. So yeah, I'm here for this. This sounds like a good idea.
Same.
Moving on to funny enough, before we got into the next story, this story had to be written hours before we started recording because I wrote down something completely different than what this was. Like nothing that was false or like I was completely wrong about it, but like I had basic information about our next story, and then literally earlier today, so much more information about this movie came out, and I was like, wait, this is a way more interesting story than we originally had. I have to rewrite this whole thing, and I did. And this is what the story is. Sony Pictures has announced that Robert Zemeckis' newest film, titled Here, reuniting the director, writer, and stars of the Oscar-winning film Forrest Gump, will be hitting theaters November 15th, 2024. The film will take place entirely from one fixed point of view. The camera never budges, and it doesn't zoom, and never even turns. What does move, and rather quickly, is time. More than a century of life in one American living room plays out during the brisk 104-minute story. Zemeckis tells Vanity Fair, quote, the single perspective never changes, but everything around it does. It's actually never been done before. There are similar scenes in very early silent movies before the language of montage was invented. But other than that, yeah, it was a risky venture. Eric Roth and Robert Zemeckis reunite to adapt the screenplay from the acclaimed graphic novel of the same name by Richard
McGuire,
thank you. Tom Hanks and Robin Wright will also reunite to star in the film and will use traditional makeup and digital de-aging effects to traverse them through the decades.
Sounds like a beautiful film. I was just gonna say it. I mean, it sounds like a beautiful film. It's gonna be a lot of talking. It's gonna be a very character. This is gonna be, if we're staying in this one setting, then it is 100% character driven. Which obviously, if the writing is there, which I believe the team can do, I'm here for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's crazy that like you have basically the team behind Forrest Gump, and Robert Zemeckis and Eric Roth have not done a project together since Forrest Gump. And I looked this up. Tom Hanks and Robin Wright has not done a project together, from my knowledge, since Forrest Gump either. So obviously they all came together because they felt something special about this project. And given the technical creativity that's behind this, it has me really intrigued that if the camera's not moving, that's a lot of work for the actors to have to do. That's a lot of work on them, and what better talent than Tom Hanks and Robin Wright to be able to make that happen. So like I mean, if he's saying the camera doesn't even budge, this has to be a wide camera, and all the close-ups are going to have to be within the movement of the characters in the scenes. And then I'm assuming there's going to be some fades or cut to blacks or whatever to give us transition through time. But the idea of kind of just sitting in one living room and seeing how life goes through and how life goes on, the idea of it sounds great. But also, and I love Robert Zemeckis. He's given us great movies like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Forrest Gump, and one of my all-time favorites, Back to the Future. But he has also given us some movies that have not been so great over his span of career, and trying to use technology to advance some of those movies, and sometimes it just doesn't work. And so his de-aging has not sometimes aged well. A lot of people can't watch The Polar Express because they can't get over
the soulless eyes.
The soulless eyes. So I know he wants to branch out into. Do you hear that thunder out there? That's crazy. Yeah, all right.
That's how they're feeling.
That might be our friend for the next. Yeah, that's how they're feeling. That's not a good omen for this film. But there's not going to be any
close-ups. Like, it is like
no.
They're like, you're in that point of view, and you just need to follow what's happening on screen. It's almost like you're sitting in the room. You're sitting in the room and you're just going through it with them. So I think it's going to be cool, and I agree with you. I mean, obviously, Polar Express is the big example. But I think I have hope. I have hope that this will be done. That this can be done well.
I do want to talk about our writer Eric Roth for a minute, because I looked down his filmography, and I'm just gonna talk about some heavy hitters. Obviously, he did Forrest Gump, which we already talked about, but throughout his career, he's done Ali, Munich, The Good Shepherd, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, A Star Is Born, the one with Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper. He helped co-write Dune, and he also did Killers of the Flower Moon. So, needless to say, he has been around and been nominated for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Academy Awards, winning 1 for Best Writing for Forrest Gump. So, needless to say, at least in the writing department, Eric Ross have been doing quite well, and getting some accolades for it. So I think he would attach himself to a project if he didn't believe in it. So I have full faith in the writing, full faith in the acting, and Robert Zemeckis gave me Back to the Future. I'm gonna watch every movie he's made, and maybe this one, who knows? This could be in the Oscar conversation. I'm just saying that out loud.
This is clear Oscar bait. I mean, well, that's for sure. This is clear Oscar bait.
Yeah,
100%.
Whether they actually take the bait is another thing.
It's a good possibility.
There's
already good buzz. There's already good buzz at the initial news of it. I mean, this is like considered. This is considerably big news.
Yeah. But also, you said the point of like there's no close-ups. I think the actors will have to physically go toward the camera in order to get those close-ups. So a lot of movement that has to be a lot to ask within this. The cinematographer has it easy. Yep. I feel like a lot of blocking is going to be the issue. Anyway, this sounds really, really interesting to me. The one thing I do like about Robert Zemeckis is that he's always going out there, good, bad, or otherwise. He's always trying new things with cinema, and this is just another example of that. So I really hope this is good. Otherwise, this could be really boring.
Yeah, it's either going to be really good or really bad. I'm leaning more towards good, but could really go the other way.
I want to have some faith there. But anyway.
All right. Universal Pictures has acquired the feature film rights to James, the latest book from author Percival Everett, whose novel Erasure was adapted into the Oscar-winning film American Fiction. Steven Spielberg would executive produce the film under his Amblin Partners production company, with Taika Waititi in early talks to direct the film. Everett will write the screenplay and will also serve as an executive producer. The story of James reframes the classic story of Huckleberry Finn from the point of Jim, an enslaved man who floats down the Mississippi River with teenage Finn, a good friend of Tom Sawyer. The book's description reads, while many narrative set pieces of adventures of Huckleberry Finn remain in place, Jim's agency, intelligence, and compassion are shown in a radically new light. James made the New York Times and Amazon list of best books of 2024 so far. Obviously, American Fiction was an incredible film, of early favorite from this year. So I'm excited. It's very clear that he can handle racially sensitive projects and do them correctly, which we saw through American Fiction. So I have high hopes that we will get that same level with this new project. Maybe even more, because Huckleberry Finn is such a beloved literary classic. So this will obviously, I think it'll be treated with the utmost respect in perceiving and giving us that point of view.
Yeah, I think, Steven Spielberg has also been great of, seeing talent when there is one, and under his Amblin production company. And I think he's seeing it here. You can't ignore a best-selling novel from the movie that was adapted into an Oscar-winning film. What I do find interesting out of all this is Taika Waititi as a director.
That doesn't surprise me too much, because you think of, when I hear him attached to this project, I'm thinking Jojo Rabbit feels.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm thinking the same thing. So obviously he is not... He is definitely around the Oscar circuit. I'm pretty sure he won the Oscar that year for Best Writing, I believe, for Jojo Rabbit. I know he won. I just don't remember what he won for. I believe it was Best Writing. But yeah, I think that's an interesting project for Taika Waititi to go down, even though looks like he's still developing that Star Wars movie. Like, I feel like he has a lot going on, and the fact that Taika Waititi is in the conversation has me even more intrigued. I think he can treat this property with good subtlety. But yeah, it has me interested. Honestly, the log line really has me intrigued of what the story can be. Kind of makes me want to go and dive into the book before the movie comes out.
Yeah, I agree. Something that we didn't get to do with American Fiction, which I know we talked about, like wishing we were able to have that dual conversation between the book and the movie of Erasure and American Fiction. At least now it's more likely for us to have that conversation when this movie comes out. As far as Academy Awards for Jojo Rabbit, they were nominated for 5 and they won 1 for Best Adapted Screenplay.
Adapted screenplay, okay.
So I mean, I can see it. And then James Everett won writing for American Fiction.
Yes, he did. So obviously, like he said, he's writing the screenplay, so he's very willing to go from what he wrote in the novel and then adapting that to a screenplay. So yeah, I mean, all of this to me, this is great news. I also enjoyed American Fiction, so I like his writing, I like his style, yes. And if he can bring that style to a new project, then I'm all in for it. And then when you have the backings of Steven Spielberg and possibly Taika Waititi directing your movie, this sounds like a good marriage here. I like this.
More books to add on my Audible. I
think we might have to read this one before the movie comes out.
You know me, I'm on board. You know, we've already proved that we can do it, especially if the book's already out, so we have more than enough time. More than enough time.
Sometimes some books are better than others. Like, you know, Argyle was not that book.
Nope,
not that book.
Neither was the movie.
It wasn't.
Moving on.
Bad all around. All right, so our next few stories are kind of holdovers that has been in the works for a while. Stories that there's one I completely forgot about, which we'll get to in a second. But this one is kind of some holdovers that's been around for the last couple of weeks and that we're now getting around to. First of which being with Deadpool and Wolverine on the horizon, it looks like Marvel Studios is looking to keep director Sean Levy in the franchise. According to Deadline, Levy is Marvel's top choice to direct the next Avengers movie. Deadline sources caution that Levy still hasn't given Marvel an answer on whether or not he'll take the job, but Marvel will continue to meet with other filmmakers in the meantime. Still, Levy has reportedly been given Michael Waldron's latest version of the script to mull over. According to a separate report from The Hollywood Reporter, Marvel has quietly offered the job to Levy in mid-March, but he turned it down then due to his work as an executive producer and director on the 5th and final seasons of Netflix Stranger Things, which will last into next year. The studio, however, has reportedly pushed Avengers 5 back by several months, opening the door for Levy to step back into the mix. Deadline also reported that Avengers 5 could feature more than 60 MCU characters reprising their roles. If I was Marvel, and I really like what you did with Deadpool and Wolverine, and I'm pretty sure we're going to be tackling the multiverse in Deadpool and Wolverine. And if Marvel liked it very much, I don't care when you release Avengers 5, you push it back until this man's available. That is all I will say.
It sounds like that's already what they're doing. Well, this is great speculation. I mean, this would be great if he can take on this project, but like there are other projects that we need to finish, like Stranger Things. Before we're talking about before you have to rewrite Stranger Things for all of them to have kids, like that's where we're at. We're going to be talking about the Stranger Thing, the next generation of the Stranger Things kids. Like if they continue to push it back. So yes, I am for it, but let the man finish one project. But maybe he's, we'll see. I think it's really going to depend on the success of Deadpool, which I'm sure are going to be good. Like there's not a doubt in my mind. I'm sure the movie will be good.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's no doubt in my mind. Like it's kind of one of those like for sure things. And even though I've been let down before, but I feel like this is a for sure thing that this movie can't fail. Like, and I said that last year with Indiana Jones, and I was unfortunately wrong and very disappointed by it. But now we're here again. Another year, another movie high on my anticipation list, and I can't see this movie failing. And so I think, Sean Levy knows what he's doing for the most part. He's done great things with his films as well as the Stranger Things franchise. I do like that he is committed to Stranger Things and finishing up his project there before even agreeing to the next Marvel project. Like he knows his priorities. And so like if Marvel is willing to just wait a little bit, I think that in my personal opinion, he is the best choice I've seen so far since Daniel Cretton.
Destin Cretton.
Thank you. Yes, he was attached to this project, and then he fell off. So now, given all the changes that are happening within Avengers 5, I know the poster still says Avengers: The Kang Dynasty, but a lot of reports are saying that is no longer the case. Yeah. They're doing a different story, and I agree with you. I think given the success of Deadpool and Wolverine might determine all of that. But I think so far, if Deadpool and Wolverine is done right, and we believe that it is, hopefully, then he is the next. He's by far the best choice for the next Avengers movie. So
absolutely.
Hopefully that happens.
This next piece of news, I'm particularly excited for. Lionsgate has announced that another John Wick spin-off film is in the works, starring Donnie Yen reprising his role as the blind assassin Kane. No other details were announced, but the spin-off will continue Yen's story arc following the events of John Wick Chapter 4, as Kane has been freed by his obligations to the High Table. Robert Askins, who's written the episode for Netflix The Umbrella Academy, is writing the screenplay. Lionsgate will begin production on the Untitled movie next year in Hong Kong. This is far off, still very early news, but I mean, this is great. Donnie Yen, he was fantastic in the John Wick 4. I can't wait to see what else he can bring to the franchise.
Yeah, and this was a story that we had meant to talk about a while ago, but as we had a big news week a couple weeks back, and this one just fell off. I was like, how did I miss this one? This one's huge. Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm very excited. Kane was the best part of John Wick Chapter 4, and even with all the ballerina talk of that spinoff film, when they were talking about that spinoff, I was like, that's great. The ballerina's coming out. That sounds all right, but like, we need a Donnie Yen spinoff. And I'm glad to hear that they're actually listening to the fans, and Kane's going to see his story continue. And it also seemed like the natural continuation, because that's where the end credit scene, it continued off of him. So it only made sense that we would see his story continue. And I'm glad to see that Lionsgate is making that happen for us as the fans.
Yeah, absolutely.
And last piece of news we have for you guys this week, is Legendary Pictures has quickly found its new director for the next Godzilla X Kong MonsterVerse film after news broke last month that previous director Adam Wingard will not be returning to direct the next installment. Grant Spouter, who previously directed the 2019 Netflix film I Am Mother, starring Hilary Swank, is now attached to direct the next MonsterVerse film. As previously reported, David Callahan, screenwriter behind The Expendables, Zombieland, Double Tap, Wonder Woman 1984, Mortal Kombat, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, has been hired to write the screenplay. Yeah, it seems like they are... What's interesting about the story is that this is a fresh director. He's only had one movie under his belt. We also have a prolific screenwriter who's done multiple genre-based films, as you can see here, very like comic book, superheroes, very like action-heavy films under his belt. So this is the first time he's writing for a MonsterVerse film. So I am curious that now we have two fresh eyes into this now MonsterVerse franchise, that I wonder if they might be going into a different direction. Maybe if Legendary Pictures wants to go in a different direction in this. So we'll see how that turns out. But yeah, it looks like we got some fresh eyes into this. Maybe that could be a good thing. Maybe it might not be as goofy. Maybe it'll be even worse and be goofier.
Maybe it'll suck.
maybe it'll suck. We don't know. But I'm still a little bit disappointed of Adam Wingard kind of leaving the project, because I did like what he's been doing so far with Godzilla vs. Kong and Godzilla X Kong, and I would like to see him round out a trilogy, but sometimes it doesn't work that way, and who knows what this new director and writer has in store for the franchise. But I mean, obviously we're going to see the next one. So, but yeah, this is kind of just a follow up on a story we had talked about a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Anything to add?
No, I mean, you know, I'm very. I watch these movies for you, so.
Yeah, appreciate.
So
it.
if you're excited, Matt, then I'm excited.
I mean, who doesn't want big monsters? Big screen, big monsters. It's that's the movie you grab the popcorn for, you know, and have.
I look forward to turning off my brain and watching it later.
There you go.
That's what I can hope for.
But anyway, that's all the entertainment news we have for you guys this week. As always, you can go to our social media channels on Instagram at boxoffice_bingers, as well as our thread page at boxoffice_bingers, and our Facebook page at Box Office Bingers. We will post all the latest and breaking news over there first, and then we'll come back to the show and we'll talk about it. So with that, we're going to be diving into a fun segment we like to call Whatcha Watchin'. So Ernesto, we'll start with you. What have you been watching?
Matthew, I will tell you that I have finished Percy Jackson and the Olympians.
All right.
And I will say that I liked it. I actually liked it.
Okay.
I was very adverse to it, because I've been skeptical with a lot of the Disney Plus shows. And I will say I agree with you. I think it's meant for a younger audience. But it works. I mean, it works. You use it as a way to kind of teach kids a little bit about mythology and get them interested. You get these little mini backstories weaved in throughout the story, which is why I think the story was, like you were mentioning, why it was so simple. And I think that's why. Like, we're not focusing on that. This is to kind of like disseminate information to kids. And it's told through this kind of simple narrative. Like, oh, he gets the boat, then this thing happens, and then this easy thing happens. There was a lot of like easy fixes to things, but I was fine with it. What I did like at the very end, I thought it was cheesy, but I was like, this just like sealed the deal for like being like cheesy fun. Where she's like, where am I gonna go next? Oh, am I gonna go to Disney World? What do I do there? And they have this whole weird conversation about Disney World and about it being a water world. So there was that.
Yeah.
But it was fine. And it also, I did like, I got to see one of Lance Reddick's final roles. We get to see him as Zeus at the end of the series. And they did a in loving memory for him after the finale, which I thought was nice. I'm on board for season 2. It's fine. I like it.
I completely forgot that Lance Reddick was in the show, so that was like a nice surprise for me. I was like, oh, that's right, you were casted as Zeus into this. So yeah, it was nice to see one of his final roles portrayed in this, and it was a good one. I liked him as Zeus. Unfortunately, we know that the series is continuing, so obviously they're gonna have to recast Zeus. But for the time being, I thought he was very like powerful, like he was demanding in that role, and I liked it a lot. But yeah, like, I mean, I said my piece last week with it. It's definitely a little bit meant for children, in my opinion. I feel like there wasn't really any struggle for any of these characters. It's like we have an obstacle, and then we do, the flick of the wrist, use a sword, choo choo choo, and then we're good. We're good.
Choo choo choo, just like that.
Choo choo choo. And with the power of will, we can get it done. And I just felt like it was just really simple. It was really simple. Yeah. But I like what you said about kind of a learning lesson for kids, because this is like a good entry point for Greek mythology if you didn't know about it, especially for kids. So I can respect it for what you said there as well. I'm not going to be rushing to go see season 2, but I do think that if given the chance, these characters and these actors can mature in the roles, and maybe we can get out, in my opinion, something a little bit better than the first season.
Yeah, and I think maybe like Harry Potter, where it initially starts out for a younger audience, and I would have to ask Liz to confirm that if the material evolves with the reader. Like if it becomes more adult, then maybe as we progress, we get much deeper and darker stories. Like the introduction is kind of like getting you settled into the characters with this very simple plot.
Yeah,
because there was a lot of like, hey, this is this person, that's my daddy, this is our story, this is my mom, this is our story, this is what happened. Oh, here's Medusa, here's why she doesn't like my mom. Oh, Hephaestus, I don't even remember the guy's name, the guy who the amusement park. Oh, yeah. This is what happened to him, this is his story. Now help me look, now he's gonna help me get out of this chair in like 10 seconds. We're just going to have a conversation with him. He's going to let me go because we're going to talk about family. But you see what I mean? Like when I'm watching the episode, like there was way more exposition on, oh, this is this Greek god. This is their story. This is how they correlate to this. And then here's a little anecdote that weaves them together into this narrative. Now that you've learned it, now let's move on to the next thing. Next lesson, kids, keep up.
Keep up.
This week we're learning about Medusa. Guess what? Next week is Aries. You better keep up.
I like your version of this story. I think we should just get more recaps like that all the time, because that was fantastic.
What are you doing? We're seeing Zeus next week. No, now we're gonna meet Hades. Yes, his dad is Kronos. We see, but look, now I know a little bit. Hey,
That's
now
true.
For somebody who didn't know anything, you learn a lot of information in that one season.
You
and
do.
It's entertaining. So
Yeah.
I'm here for it. I'm here for the next season.
Okay.
To see where it progresses. I don't know if I'll necessarily pick up the books yet, but maybe sometime in the future. I mean, there's so many books. So
Yeah.
like where they can expand this universe is they have so much material to work off of. But it works. I feel like this property works as like a Disney Channel TV show.
Yes.
It's exactly what it is. And it works for that medium. Like I'm fine with it. So
I agree, and it works for Disney. And also, this is the same author, probably famously known for Percy Jackson, but he's also the same author who did Kingdom Keepers, which is a direct connection to Disney, and all of those novels that came out. So they've already had a great relationship. So it seems fitting that his series of Percy Jackson would live on Disney, and it works. I do agree with you. I think it does work well on Disney Plus.
Yeah. So. Moving on. Now, I will say one thing before I move on. Now, when the season 2 drops, I will wait until the season drops and then I will watch. This is not a week to week watch. This is a binge. This is when it drops, I'll binge it.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
But so when season 2 completes itself, then I will watch it. So
fair enough.
All right, moving on. I rewatched Dune 2 this past weekend because I felt like after seeing it for so long and. I was like, man, I feel like I've been hyping it up. Like, maybe, did I overhype this movie? Is it really that good? And I am here to tell you that yes. This movie is still as good as it was the first time I saw it. I would sit through another 3 hours of this movie. Like, that's how good it was. And
wow.
I didn't even stream it. I pulled out the Blu-ray that I bought and played the 4K disc. I didn't want to be interrupted by the internet. I pulled the disc out. We watched the DVD menu. I haven't had a chance to go through the special features. That may be this weekend's adventure. But just a great experience going back and and watching it without watching the first one. So kind of going into part 2 blind to part 1, and the movie still hits on the same level. All the same beats hit. I actually felt like, I got to see some things that I missed after my initial watch. Really, especially now because just this afternoon, I just finished reading the 4th book, God Emperor Dune, and it's just even like the little minor connections they have between this part of the storyline and to like book 4, which is set 3,500 years in the future from this point. Actually, a little bit further. So yeah, it was a great rewatch.
It's crazy. I did not know you bought the 4K, so that's kind of crazy that you've already. There's so much investment into this, and also I did not know you were now in the 4th book. So you've listened to Dune 1, 2, and 3 already.
Yeah, book 1 is Dune. Book 2 is Messiah, which is the next film that's going to be adapted. And the 3rd book, which is my favorite book so far, is Children of Dune. And then the book I just finished, which was God Emperor Dune, which was good, but not as good as Children of Dune.
Okay, interesting. All right. And so now knowing what you know from Dune and Dune Part 2, knowing what you know from the books, does that excite you for what Dune Messiah can be?
Yeah, I mean, Dune Messiah is not my favorite book. It's probably, like, if I had to rank them, it'd probably be Dune, Children of Dune, God Emperor Dune, and then Messiah. Because there are things that happen, but they've already changed the story from Dune from the original Dune storyline.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering if they're gonna mix some of Children of Dune into the Dune Messiah storyline.
Got it.
And
Okay.
that would be really interesting. So either way, I'm here. I'm strapped into the Dune universe. Now I'm actually stopping at book 4 for Dune because Frank Herbert wrote the first original 6. But and we're gonna talk about this later. The next book, which I just started today, was George R. R. Martin's Fire and Blood.
Oh,
It's the prequel book that is linked to House of Dragon. So I am in 30 minutes in. I just started that one today.
Okay, so you're giving Dune a break, and then you're diving into Fire and Blood, right?
I'm gonna look it up by the time we get there, but I believe it's Fire and Blood, and it's a 25-hour read.
I mean, he does write long books, so.
Yes, it's Fire and... Is it Fire and Blood? Yes.
I'm pretty sure. No?
Nope. No, yes, Fire and Blood, 300 years before A Game of Thrones. Yes, that's
okay.
That is what it is. Yeah, I just started that one today. So I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty excited for that as well. Moving on, I am watching week to week The Boys. Have you started this at all?
No, but it's funny. It's funny that you said that because I'm done.
Ooh.
Wow.
Is it? That's how mad I am that you haven't watched it yet. That lightning hit. You haven't watched yet, Matthew.
This is storming outside right now. But so the month of June has been a nice reward, nice treat for us nerds, because we got the new Star Wars show, The Acolyte, where it has been getting it's getting shit on real bad.
Review bombed is probably a nice way of putting it.
That's a better way than I said it. Yeah. It's getting huge negative reviews on it. And now I really want to watch it because I'm like, there's no way it's that bad. Like, people are really review bombing it. But with that, we had The Acolyte, we had The Boys, and we have The House of Dragon all coming out in the month of June. And a lot of people are talking great things about The Boys. Obviously, we're going to dive into House of Dragon. And so I'm like, all right, so I did The House of Dragon. Should I also be in the conversation with The Boys? Because I've been having the privilege now to be in the the House of Dragon community, because now I'm going into this week to week, so I get to be in the know of all the memes. And so, like, do I want to do this again with The Boys? Typically, that's also a show I kind of wait till the end and I start binging it that way. But I might do the same as well, because I've been hearing good things. But your thoughts, Ernesto?
Man, it is fantastic. I've heard a lot of rumblings that, like, I initially was put off because I've been hearing things like it's just not that good. They're way too political. Mm-hmm. But Eric Kripke came out and said that, this is what I'm doing. The show is political. These are the inspirations. And, I can't hate him for that. Like, he's because even though he's saying those things, it is in your face. But to me, it's not like in your face in place of the story. It's effectively weaved into the narrative that they're trying to tell. And I'm telling you, like, this last episode, episode 4, is probably the best episode they have ever written for Homelander ever. I think that they really explore, they really bring you in to who he is as an individual just on this one episode alone. Like, what they're able to do and how they're able to show you. I don't want to give it away because it is really good. Like, it is in true Homelander fashion. It is fucked up. To say the least.
It's funny. It's funny that you mentioned episode 4 because a lot of the, like, I don't know about this show was all in the first 3 episodes because Amazon dropped the first 3 episodes at once. And I was hearing the apprehensiveness within the fan base of, like, I'm not sure. Maybe the Boys lost its touch. Like, they weren't committed to the first 3 episodes. It was like 50-50 that I've been reading. But then everyone was, like, back on board by episode 4. And this is part of, like, one of the negative things I don't like about week to week. It's like, and even with The Acolyte, with everyone review bombing it, it's like, the show isn't over. Let the people tell their story. That's why I prefer binging it, because
Yeah.
I mean, there's one thing you might not like about the first episode, for example, but by the end, it could be something completely different, and that was the meaning of it. I'm not saying that is an excuse for maybe an episode being poorly written, or each episode should be building upon it the next one, or being that episode being entertaining enough to drive the audience to want to watch the next episode. A lot of factors at play here, but I do think that you can't criticize the episode as the show as a whole until you finish the show. You have to give it its time to breathe. And I'm definitely seeing it with The Boys of like, I don't know about the first 3 episodes. Then you watch episode 4, like, we're back, baby. It's like, well, they never left. You just didn't give it time to let it simmer for a bit. And so I'm also seeing somewhat the same things happening with The Acolyte, which the first few episodes, a lot of people have been really, really just hammering it down how much they don't like it. But then, like, the last one, they're like, oh, I can't wait. Who is this person? Oh, I'm so excited. So it's like, all right, so which one is it? Fans? Like, you can't have both. You can't, like, really be negative about one thing and then all of a sudden be back on board about it when something great happens. Like, you got to let the story simmer for a bit. But anyway, that's all my 2 cents.
Yeah, there's that. But to a certain extent, like, you need to get it together. What episode are they on for The Acolyte now?
5. I think they just dropped 6 today.
See, by episode 6, if you haven't figured out, then there's a problem. Like, and then clearly there are some things that need to be addressed.
Yeah,
I don't know, but I've been on board for The Boys, pretty much like the jump of the season. I think this season has been great. They've already given us some really great moments. I will say that there has been quite a bit of product placement. Like literally, there's one part where they walk in. He goes, "Are you eating a bloomin' onion from Outback Steakhouse?" It's like, "Yeah, do you want some?" "I sure do." And it was written into the story, but it was like, man, that's like really specific.
I just wanted to clarify, The Acolyte just dropped the 5th episode today, and they have 8 episodes total. So, like, to your point, they reached the halfway mark.
But every time I hear an episode of The Acolyte drops, it doesn't get better. It get like the reviews just further confirm how bad it is. It's like, yeah, this week is worse than last week.
I think now that you kind of got me in the head of the week to week. I don't often do it, but like within all of the stuff that's coming out this month, maybe I might benefit from the week to week viewings on all 3 shows, honestly.
Okay.
Because like I kind of want to be in the conversation of like, is it really that bad? I'm gonna watch it anyway, but is it really that bad? Are you guys just over exaggerating?
I'm very apprehensive.
Like, is the Boys like really like losing its touch, or are you just jumping the gun? And the same with House of Dragon. Is it really that good, or you just love Game of Thrones? So like, and all those conversations are at play. But yeah, I think because there's a lot of spoilers within all 3 shows that could happen. So to cover my basis and to avoid either one of them, I think I'm just going to start watching all of them. And also after I finished watching the House of Dragon, like last night I was like, all right, what am I going to start? I don't really want to start anything right now, but I don't want to commit to anything right now. So then I instead watched about maybe an hour and a half's worth of breakdown videos between episode 1 and 2 of House and Dragon, and then I went to bed. So
had to let all that information simmer in
there. So like, all right. And then I know there's also review and breakdown videos for The Boys and The Acolyte. So I was like, all right, I can get myself in there, because what I find myself is that when I binge it, I don't want to do the breakdown videos because then that's extending my watch when the next episode's already out. It's like, I don't want just like spend an hour on a TV show and then another 30 minutes on a breakdown.
Yeah. Certain shows they benefit from you giving that week to speculate, and I think I really think that you're going to enjoy the House of Dragon experience when we get there and when we start talking about it. The benefit that the week to week that House of Dragon it's a much different experience than binging.
Yeah, I mean, I can already see that, and Game of Thrones is also that like let it simmer for a bit. I never had that experience, but I've also have other shows that like, especially with Star Wars and Marvel, where like those are the 2 franchises that I want anything spoiled for me. So I do typically go into the week to week in that, and I do often watch those breakdown videos because I have that week to simmer. But if I'm binging it, I have no reason to watch the breakdowns, in my opinion, unless it's like the final episode. I might do it for the final episode of the season.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to extend my viewing an extra 30 minutes when I could have been halfway done through the next episode by then.
Very true.
But anyway, but I'm glad to hear that The Boys is doing it. So are you going to be committing to the week to week as well?
Yes, for the most part, yes.
All right, so maybe we might be doing that together.
Maybe.
Well.
We'll see. It might be a new thing. All right,
Might be a new
I got
thing.
one more.
All right.
I have started the X series.
Ooh.
Yeah, me and Hannah saw the first movie this past weekend because we're going to prepare to maybe eventually go see the third one when it comes out in the theaters. But I enjoyed it. It was a very simple story. I didn't look up who the actress was, but it is very clear that the old man and the woman, old couple, are played by young actors. Like, it is like blatantly clear. Like, that, me and her the whole movie were like, that's a young person. Like, that person's wearing very obvious makeup.
Yeah.
But other than that, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a very simple story that worked. It was good. The kills were good. The story was predictable, but it was fine. You know, you can tell that they were young. But yeah, in a weird way, it worked.
So I also enjoyed the first movie X, but where I really got into this was Pearl, which is the prequel to X, and it follows the old lady that's in the first movie, that is also played by Maya Goth.
Does she play the old woman in the first movie?
She does.
Really? Oh,
Yes.
I didn't look it up. I actually didn't know that. So she plays in the movie. She plays Maxine and Pearl.
Yes. And then in the prequel plays a younger version of Pearl.
Oh.
And then in the third movie, Maxine, she goes back to playing
Maxine. And it seems like, and without have seeing Pearl, what it seems like Maxine is a continuation off of the events after X.
Yes, that is correct. So, like, if you're going to watch it in chronological order, it's Pearl X Maxine.
Yeah.
What I do, so, like, I enjoyed the first movie, but what was even more intriguing for me was that these two movies were basically shot back to back. And if I remember correctly, like, yeah, X was released early 2022, and then Pearl was released in the fall of 2022. So it was like, I think February of 2022 for X, and then the sequel was then Pearl was released like in August or September or something along those lines. And I will say Pearl was way better than X. And that's what really got me into this franchise. Like, I really wasn't expecting to like that movie so much, and now I'm hyped for Maxine. I was like, okay, this guy's a filmmaker. He has a vision, and I like it a lot. You have Maya Goth, who's been incredible throughout the first two movies, and so I was really excited to hear that she was going to be in the Blade movie, whether that happens or not at this point. Hopefully she's still attached to the because I thought she was a great actress in those two films. So yeah, looking forward to Maxine, and also seeing it in the theater, because I did not do that with X and Pearl. So I'm definitely seeing Maxine in the theater with that one.
Yeah, definitely, me too. And that's all I got for this week. I had a lot. Well, besides our House of Dragon, but we're gonna wait to the end.
So, Ernesto already knows I have a long list of movies. I've been to the theater, catch up on stuff at home, and I'm just gonna. Ernesto knows what this list is because I had to give him the graphics for it. But I'm going to ask you a question. It's 50-50 shot for you, Ernesto.
Okay.
I gave you the list of movies.
Okay.
Do you think that order is from worst to best or from best to worst?
I think it's from worst to best.
Okay, and you'll be correct on that. And the first movie we're talking about is John Krasinski's latest film, If.
Oh.
I
That makes me
know.
sad.
Yeah, it made me sad too when I finished watching it. I saw it in the theaters, and I was like, man, what a letdown. Like, I liked him I like his directing style for A Quiet Place and A Quiet Place Part 2. To me, where this movie falters is that there is this emotional disconnect that this movie feels like I should be feeling everything this movie has to offer. And it's very like sensitive and delicate and like like almost like here's this very sensitive movie for children, but with a lot of adult themes. And it didn't land for kids, in my opinion. I mean, I'm not a kid, but like I feel like if I was a kid trying to enjoy what this movie had to offer, it's too complicated, unnecessarily complicated. Me as an adult, I'm having a hard time understanding the rules of this as well as what this story is trying to say. Like, I think the biggest problem with this movie is it just doesn't 100% make sense to me, and you are for some reason omitting information. Like, you're being ambiguous for no reason. Like, John Krasinski's in the movie and he's in the hospital, and I never know why he's in the hospital. And I was like, I feel like that's a big part of the story, why this young girl, his daughter, continuously has to visit her dad in the hospital. Yet for whatever reason, we never know why.
Well, that's
like, we know that he's going through some sort of procedure, but the film doesn't decide to tell you that. And I was like, but why? Like, I'm literally spending half this movie trying to figure out, like, what's the point of this? Why aren't you telling me this information? And it just didn't work. And unfortunately for Ryan Reynolds, this was not the movie for him. And I don't say that, like, obviously Ryan Reynolds picks his films, and I'm pretty sure that even in interviews, Ryan Reynolds has, like, told John Krasinski, like, you want me in for this movie? Like, you sure? I'm Deadpool. Like, I have a certain style. You want me to be represented in this movie? And he was like, yeah. And I think I agree with Ryan Reynolds. I don't think he believed that he should have been in this movie either. It just didn't work. And like, I feel like it was too emotional of a film that somehow did not connect with the audience. It's like, I feel like these are these moments that feel like I should be crying or I should be thinking deeply about what's happening in the scene. And instead I'm like, what is happening right now?
What are we doing?
I don't get it. And there was something that was off about this movie. And I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but there was something off about this movie. About 2/3 of the way, I figured it out why it was off. And then within the story, it happened the way I predicted. And I was like, yep, this makes sense. Still doesn't help the movie, but this makes sense why I had this odd feeling about it. And I don't know if you want me to spoil it for you, Ernesto. I don't
plan to see it unless the kids. You
don't plan to see it
unless the kids pop it on. It's a Paramount, so when it eventually comes to Paramount Plus.
Well, I'll hold my reserve for it. But there's an element in this movie that was just very, amongst other things, were also very confusing for me. But there was one that I was able to pick up on about 2/3 of the way, and I was like, wait a minute, that don't add up. I was like, I'm still confused why this is happening and the way that it's happening. And then it's like one of those, like, you're almost disappointed that you were right when you, like, oh, I think I got it. And then it happened, you're like, yeah, okay. Doesn't help the situation, but I got it. Okay. So there's that. I think this was a little bit of a misstep for John Krasinski, and I think the Rotten Tomato score reflects that, because I know the critics did not like this movie at all. I think the audience was more favorable, but I really don't see this movie for kids. Like, it's too deep and too confusing for kids to understand, because I was confused with it all, and I didn't even understand the point of the movie. Like, we have this young girl that's trying to, like, find these imaginary friends a new home, and, like, at the end, it didn't happen. I was like, I don't understand. What's the point of this? When like I just understand the rules. There's a lot. It's a very confusing film, overly complicated. They really need to simplify it. And so yeah, unfortunately, a misstep for John Krasinski. I wish I would have waited to see this at home, but I was in a double feature mode, and this fit the right time.
Yeah.
So
well, it's always a roll of the dice.
Yeah. It really is. Another film I saw in theaters, and this one, mind you, I saw with nobody in it.
I would imagine.
Which I went from a film that had nobody in it to a packed house with the Bikeriders. But this movie was interesting. This is from, I don't know how to pronounce her first name. I think it's Ashna, who is M. Night Shyamalan's Ishana. This is her, I'm pretty sure, screenwriting and directorial debut. She is M. Night Shyamalan's daughter. And yeah, the movie's solid. Again, another movie that there's some sort of twist to some element that's in there. What I find interesting was that there's like this first 15 minutes of the movie that just felt like it kind of drags a bit. And then when I watched the end of the movie, I was like, why did we even bother with the first 15 minutes of this movie? As basically it was like for Dakota Fanning a reason to go into the woods. And like she works at this animal like a pet place.
Like a pet shop?
Like a pet shop. And somebody wanted a bird that lived like an hour and a half away from the shop, and she was delivering that bird to them. And then she gets to the point of the woods, the car stops automatically because she's in that point where spooky stuff happens. And then we just like, and then all of a sudden she gets whisked in within the story. And I was like, why didn't we just start in the woods? Why do we have to have this really weird way of getting there? We can just start there.
She could have just been driving with like directions of how to find of where the bird is.
Yeah, or something. Yeah. And so like she was delivering the bird, and the bird ended up having a point in the story, but I didn't think she needed to work at a pet shop for us to get there. They could have definitely taken away the first 15 minutes of the movie, and then it would have made like a really solid 90 minutes. But what I didn't realize, and then I later looked into the description, this movie's a fantasy. I thought this movie was a horror. When I see some fantasy elements taking place, I was like, wait, what? This is weird. And then, yeah, I guess the trailer made it seem like this was a straight up horror, and I was interested in the movie. But there's a fantasy element to it that I was not expecting. So that kind of threw me off guard. So the tone was a little off for me because it was like a horror fantasy thriller movie. Again, it was another movie that about 2/3 the way in, I was like, I know what the twist is. There is a small twist in there, and I think it's painfully obvious once you get to a certain point in the film. So again, it's pretty solid. I'm not saying it was a bad movie. I think as far as her directorial debut, I think it's a solid run. And there was a twist in there. If you didn't see it coming, it's not a bad one, but I saw it coming. So like at this point, if it didn't go in that direction, I would have been upset. But there was a moment in the movie where like, hey, you'll never guess what I found. I was like, you found this? It's like, I found this. I was like, yeah, no, we know.
Yeah,
we figured it. Yeah, we figured that out. Thank you. But yeah, it was like such a dramatic scene, and I like, yeah, no, we got that 20 minutes ago. You got to move on, Dakota. You really got to move on. we already got there. But it was just me talking to myself because I was the only person in the theater. So anyway, a solid movie. Another one I probably could have waited. One that I did wait for, I did not see in the theater, but it just hit Peacock, is Kung Fu Panda 4. And you know what? Jack Black, the Kung Fu Panda, still got it. Skadoosh all the way. Solid movie for kids. Continues the story organically. Some really good action scenes. Story kind of makes sense. For some reason, they decided to exclude the Furious 5 or whatever they're called. But also those are attached to like pretty big actors, like voice actors like Angelina Jolie, Seth Rogen, Jackie Chan, somebody else I'm missing. I think Lucy Liu as well. So those are probably big names that were attached that they probably decided is like, hey, we could probably save money if we just keep Jack Black. And then to add like some fuel to the roster, they brought back David Hoffman as Master. I already forgot his name.
I don't know, man. Can I tell you I've never seen any of the Kung Fu Panda movies?
What?
Never.
Are you kidding me? Ernesto,
No.
you have 4 kids. None of them made you watch Kung Fu Panda.
No, but funny enough, as we were getting to record, I was in the office and my daughter was in. I was setting up for the show and I was in here with my daughter, and I was just putting something on so I could work or whatever, and I put on Kung Fu Panda, the first one. So I've background watched the first 30 minutes. So who knows? Maybe we hop on because she was in it. She was really interested.
I think you need to do yourself a favor. I mean, honestly, this is like one of the top DreamWorks franchises. Like for me, 1 is How to Train Your Dragon, 2 is Shrek, and I think 3 is Kung Fu Panda. Like they know what's up in that Kung Fu Panda world. Like it's very entertaining and it's very fun. So I think you should definitely watch this film. I'm surprised you didn't watch any of these. Yeah, I'm a fan. Like, and at least in this case for this film, they brought back David Hoffman. Like I said, newcomers were Awkwafina and Viola Davis, and they also brought back Bryan Cranston, who plays Poe's father. So, yeah, I think this was a great animated flick for DreamWorks. DreamWorks definitely has a tone to them. They don't really try to go any further or deeper than what these movies are, and I think what's important in all of this is like, I think what a movie, no matter what kind of movie it is, if you know what this movie is supposed to be, then it works well. Like I was just kind of, not really bashing, but kind of disappointed in what If was. And I feel like If didn't know what the movie was supposed to be. So therefore there was a disconnect there. But this movie knows exactly what it's supposed to be. You're on round 4 with this. And it's still doing quite well for itself. So I think it also dominated in the box office. It knocked off Dune out of the number 1 slot, which I didn't think it was going to do. Dune Part 2. Like Dune Part 2 could have easily been number 1 for like 3 weeks. And Dune Part 2 in its second week, Kung Fu Panda was like, nope, that's my spot.
Well, I mean, it came out during that spring break time. And
it did.
I mean, Dune 2 is an R-rated sci-fi epic. So I think it was an anomaly for it to be as big as it was. And this, this is a movie it's good for all audiences. Like any and all audiences can come and see it, and especially when there's not that many kids films in the theaters. Like when you get a film that you can bring all your kids to, like that's the one that's going to drive everybody there, especially if it's a good movie, which you say it was.
Yeah, and also, I mean, it's brand recognition. Everyone loves Kung Fu Panda except for Ernesto because you haven't watched it. But like that's a franchise that's like hasn't given us a bad movie yet, in my opinion. So like it's solid. Like none of them are kind of overly like none of them are like so good. But like it's like they're good for what they are. It's a movie that knows exactly what it is. And I am always entertained with the movies. And like at this point, Jack Black knows how to be a panda. Like he's really good at it. So like I feel like this is a franchise that they can always continue to give us new. Like they can 5, 6. Like the story's not over. Like I feel like even this movie, like they never really put a finite on his story. They had a good continuation point. I think they've been growing organically. But I can see them ending with 5 though. Like where the story leaves off, one more can maybe cap it off for Kung Fu Panda, but if they really wanted to stretch it out, they can continue more if they wanted to. But yeah, another solid movie from DreamWorks. Next is Hitman, the new movie from Glenn Powell and Richard Linklater, starring Glenn Powell. And I will say this is a great movie, a solid flick. And I think at the most, the biggest thing I got out of this movie was like this is a good showcase for Glenn Powell as an actor. Like I feel like he's been, I wouldn't say typecasted, but he's like the leading man who's like the pretty boy in a comedy setting or a bully in an action movie. We're going to see him probably play a similar role, in my opinion, in Twisters. But this one did a really good job of showcasing him as a versatile actor. It's like, oh, okay, he can play a little nerdy, he can play a little confident, he can play a little weird. Like, I feel like he can easily go down the Ryan Gosling train if he can do this right. And I think this was a good showcase on that, and it was also an interesting one that I thought I knew what was going to happen, and they kept reeling me back in with like, nope, we're going this direction instead. I said, oh, okay, I like what we're doing here. So I think it's a really good movie for Netflix. I enjoyed this one a lot.
Yeah, I watched the first 20 minutes, but I started it when I was tired, and it was interesting. Like, just the whole premise of it is really good, especially like in the very beginning when you think that one thing is what he's doing is one thing, and then they switch it up on you. Like, I don't want to give too much. I don't want to give it away, but
yeah.
I like it. I think I want to, maybe this weekend I'm going to go back and finish watching it.
Yeah, I think it was a solid flick. I enjoyed it for what it was, and another good film for Netflix under their belt. So, and the last movie that I watched, and man, was it a thrill ride.
Really?
Yes. I was I know, Ernesto. I was surprised in myself how much I enjoyed this movie. I'm not saying it's the best movie out there. I'm not saying that at all. But like, they went full family. They went full Fast and Furious.
No.
Like,
did they cross the line? Did they do it?
I don't think no, I think it was grounded in what it is. But I think for me, what I really enjoyed about this the most, and I was kind of the theme of this whole thing, is like, this movie clearly played to its audience. They knew who they made this movie for, and they really went in on it, and it worked really, really well. Like, they found a way to even bring back oh man, I forgot his name already. He was the detective that's been in all, like the chief that's been in all the movies. And
I know who you're talking about. I just forgot his name.
Yeah, he died in the last movie, but they found a way, a clever Joe. He played Captain Howard, Joe Palatano. That was his name, I believe so. But he played Captain Howard, and he died in the previous film, and found a way to bring his character, his legacy into the fold without having to like do a fake out on his death. So like they held the fact that he died in the last movie, and they expanded upon that. And I think I really like that in a story. And they were also doing like the Fast Five thing, where like they were bringing in all the stories together from the previous films, and it was like, oh, it was connected this entire time. And you had like this kind of convoluted way of bringing those stories together. But I was like, you know what? I applaud you for that, because I know it's not easy to do that. And then like, you really didn't have to do that. But I think because this movie's under Sony, and so I feel like that they know the vibe of this movie already. And it's like, but what if we made this into like, what if Sony can have their own Fast franchise out of it?
They could.
And I think they found a way to do that. They don't have like huge names attached to it aside from Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. They definitely kept the core people involved, but they did a really good job of what they had. And if they really wanted to, they can really make this explode if they wanted to do that. And the action is really, really good. There was like this helicopter scene airplane scene that happened that was like action-packed heavy. And also, do you remember Reggie, our boy Reggie?
Yes.
In the movie, like he was the butt of the joke. They gave him his moment to shine. Easily the best part of the movie.
Really?
Where somebody in the audience, I feel like it's been a while since this happened, where we got some reaction from the audience, and the movie's been out for like 2 weeks already. So I'm going into like not like a packed house. It's like a medium-sized theater, and like with a few people in it. And like somebody yelled in the theater, like, "That's right, you get him, Reggie." And I was like, "Yeah, no, that's a very that's the reaction that I would have if I was going to speak out in the theater." But yeah, it made a lot of sense to me. It's like, yeah, that's the response that you kind of want in the crowd, of like them cheering on certain moments, and the fact that Reggie has been a part of this story for quite some time now, and the fact that they finally give him such a, like, honestly, it was a badass moment for him. And I was like, if it was me, I would have stood up and applauded. I was like, yes, that was fantastic for them to do that. And it paid off also in the end of the movie as well. The jokes were pretty solid. It was consistently funny. There was this whole through line that they had with Martin Lawrence's character that I didn't really care for. Like, he had like a near death experience in the first 5 minutes of the movie, and then he was like, oh, I can't die, and so he's like walking on the street, and like cars are missing him. He has like this very euphoric moment, like he can do anything, it's not my moment to die, all that stuff. And I feel like that joke didn't land, but once we got past all that, then the movie was able to be what it is. But yeah, I think they to me, like, they had the right amount of callbacks, a good story to push you through, and it was a movie that knew its audience.
Okay.
And I can see why it did really well in the box office, because people really responded to that. They can easily make another movie out of this.
Which they probably will.
In which they probably will, because it did very well. Also, this was the big, whatever you feel about Will Smith after the slap, this was his first big success after that. So I think this was, at least for Will Smith, this was a win that he needed to get back in the good graces of the audience. But yeah, I think to me this movie works. It works really, really well.
Okay, all right. Well, if the time comes around, I will watch it. I wasn't too crazy about the last one, but okay, we'll see. I'm willing to give it. If you say it's that good, then I'm willing to give it a shot.
Well, like I said, I think it's good for knowing what it needs to be for its audience. Yeah. And like, if you're already not in that mindset, or if you're not invested into the franchise or have any liking of the franchise, then maybe this movie isn't for you. But for the right audience, it works. And I played right into that, and it worked for me. Also, I am a fan of the Fast franchise, so how ridiculous it has become, but it's not there yet. But I feel like, hey, Fast had to start somewhere to get ridiculous. If they wanted to get there, they could easily move off from that. So there's that. But anyway, that is all I've been watching.
All right, so now I feel like I should have like theme music, like what? That is not how that goes, Matthew.
Remix
band. All right, we're done. I'm done now. So it's that time. We're gonna talk about episode 1 and 2 of House of Dragon. We're gonna attempt to do this week to week. So season 2 started out strong. First episode is titled "A Son for a Son," directed by Alan Taylor, written by Ryan Condal, the showrunner. So obviously the first episode comes out strong. We see Cregan Stark, who's and Jacaerys Targaryen. They're up there at the wall, trying to recruit forces. He obviously doesn't know that Lucerys has been killed yet. Rhaenyra is still dealing with her son's death. She's out in mourning. We get that great scene where she's out on the beach, and her dragon, or they find his clothes, and the dragon is also feeling for Lucerys' dragon. I don't remember his name. They were all connected, and Rhaenyra's dragon is feeling the pain of when they find his clothes, and she comes back to Dragonstone. The entire council is calling for war, and all she says is, I want Aemon Targaryen. And then Daemon, Matt Smith, sets off Blood and Cheese to go fulfill this mission. And if they say, if we can't find him, what do we do? And then they don't show that answer is not shown on screen, but the title of the show kind of gives it away. A son for a son. They don't find him. It leads to this interaction with the queen and her children, where they tell her, which son do you choose, and they have her choose I thought that scene played out horrifically. Like literally after that scene was over, me and Hannah just sat there and were like, we just have to sit here for a few minutes and collect ourselves. What's even worse about that is that apparently in the book, the scene
It was worse.
plays out way worse. Whereas in the book, there's actually 3 children, and they tell her to choose between the 2 boys, and that if she doesn't choose, that they would rape her little girl. And when she chooses, they tell the little kid, the one who she chose, look, your mom doesn't love you, and then kills the other one. So
yeah,
I do think that what they did was effective for what, for how it was portrayed on screen. But I feel like they're missing, that part alone is missing an element of the mental instability that's going to create for the queen, for her having to deal with that, and also for her son to have to grow up, like, coming to terms with that. My mom picked me to die. Like,
they missed that element from the book.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like, they missed that element completely. But I thought it was the scene was shot very effectively, and then the queen runs, doesn't find anybody because nobody's protecting her, because bitch ass Sir Kristen is knee deep in Queen Alicent, instead of doing his fucking job. So she walks in on them doing hanky panky, and
which she, like, the queen was like, oh no, what you didn't see? She's like, I don't give a shit about what's happening on that bed right now.
It's like, you can just finish. Like, you guys can just go ahead and finish. I'm just gonna tell you, my son's dead. I just watched my son get decapitated. Oh, that's another thing. Well, apparently in the book, she actually watches it happen, and as opposed to her running away, which I think that is a much darker way to reveal that story. I feel like it is a missed opportunity for the Game of Thrones universe to not showcase such a dark element. I mean, we're already showing this horrific scene. Like, why not add the emotional instability, the more that it's going to add to the scene?
Well, from my understanding, first of all, that there's a brother and sister, and they were both twins. And so when Blood and Cheese were trying to figure out which one was the boy, they couldn't figure it out. So that's why they had the mother choose which one's the boy. And she pointed, and they first thought that she was lying, and they were about to kill the other one, I guess the daughter. And then one of the two were like, no, she's telling the truth. And they end up killing her son. She grabbed her daughter and ran off. And then in the book, from my understanding, like you said, there were 3 children, but in the show, there's only 2. So they made that distinction. So like they couldn't go in that route because there's only 2 instead of 3. But they could have gone the route of, like, you picked, your son wants you, your mother wanted you dead and killed the other one. They could have still done that, but they were both sleeping at the time. So that was a decision that was made on the creators' parts. But also when the mother was running away and they found the queen in the bed and all that stuff, the only line, I think what closed out the episode was like, they killed the boy. Like that's what she said. Yeah. Not her son, not the future heir. It was, they killed the boy. And like, she was obviously distraught, rightfully so, after the horrific moment within that. And it was kind of like a really dark way to kind of start off the season. And then that obviously played into the events, almost like this was like the tipping point that plays into maybe if the killing of Rhaenyra's son was a tipping point for her in the end of season 1, then this is just a fuel to the fire to kick off season 2 and the events that move forward with that.
Well, we can already see, just even between episode 1 and 2, that we are on the slow march to the eventual war. Do you have anything else for episode 1?
No, I think the main thing I wanted to point out was that Rhaenyra only had one line in the movie, in the episode, which I think is very powerful. Mm-hmm. Like, you see her throughout the whole episode just kind of looking for the remains of the dragon and her son to kind of make it, like, it kind of giving her the closure that she needs like she wants to confirm that her son is no longer alive, and then she finally gets it. And as soon as she gets back to Dragonstone, it's like, I want Aemon Targaryen. That's the only thing that she says in the whole line,
Really?
the whole episode. And I think that yeah, she doesn't say any other line besides that. And I think for me that's very powerful as a character, and as far as the writing is concerned, because we just see her throughout the episode kind of grieving, and out of like this visceral response when like, all right, the queen's back, like we need to get Rhaenyra's back, we need to get a game plan going, and she's like, I got one game plan, and this is the only one that matters right now.
Yep.
Because I got a confirmation that my son is dead, and I want now his killer to also die. That is the only thing that matters right now. And then unfortunately did not go out the way that she wanted, but even though she didn't make any orders to do that, it was all Matt Smith. What character is he? Damon. Yeah. He went off into his own mission, and then kind of the line of communication kind of fell off between, I want Aemon Targaryen, Daemon going in and saying, hey, you need to kill Aemon Targaryen, and kind of left it open-ended of like a son for a son. For that matter, we didn't even hear them say those words, but they kept, Blood and Cheese kept repeating it. And then, we have this horrific act that follows, something in kind of Game of Thrones fashion, that it's never the way that you expect it to go. And I feel like I want to be more surprised or more shocked as a viewer to see it go in that direction. But I mean, this isn't our first rodeo going down Game of Thrones. And so I think, like, I was like, yeah, that's just as dark as I feel like it would go down. And even so, like, I saw, like, one of my few breakdown videos is that the guy brought, we see him bring a dog over as he's perusing the castle. And they said there were 2 other shots in the episode where you can see him and the dog roaming the castle, like sneaking around in the background, kind of foreshadowing that he's been doing this. Like, he knows what he's doing. He's already doing it. No one even notices him, like, snooping around the castle. So I thought that was really good. Really cool for them to do that. And also, one other thing I want to point out is the king, Aegon. I don't know what happened between the first season and the second season. And I will say this for all the actors. They probably took some acting classes. I'm not saying that they were bad before, but, like, I feel like there is a noticeable difference, in my opinion, of the approach that they took the character in the first season and into the second season. Because I thought Aegon was fantastic in his role of, like, he wants to be a good king. He's hearing out the people. And then you have bitch ass the Hand coming in and be like, well, this is why you can't do this because of rules and, what's better for the kingdom. And you have this play of, like, his, like, how innocent and, like, how much he really does not know about the rules of being the king, but also he's trying to be good to the people that are there. And he's like, well, he just wants his sheep back. And he's like, well, we just won't tell everybody. Word gets around. If you give the sheep back, then you have to do it for everybody. And he's like, well, if you get the sheep back, then we can't have the dragons fed. And if we don't have the dragons fed, they won't be in full strength to be in a war that we might have to happen. He's like, fine, no sheep for you. But, like, he felt like he didn't want to make that decision. But then he was willing to give the payment for, like, the merchants. He's like, I'm gonna have this win. I'm gonna give him the money he needs so he can give us weapons. So
yeah, but it also showcases how incompetent he was as a king. Like, like, he's supposed to be like Aegon, this great ruler, but he has no fucking clue what he's doing.
no, but I like even him being as a father, and it also was just kind of to see that literally to see this earlier in the episode, where he's, like, having fun with his son. And he's like, I want to bring him on into the meetings. I want him to see what he's going to be doing in his future. It was very playful in a way, and you can see him getting excited for his son to be there. Maybe something in the breakdown videos, like something that his father never did for him, because he was never allowed in those moments. So, like, he wants for his son as well as his kingdom. So you can kind of see that he's trying, but it's really not the right place for, obviously, his son to be in. And then you get the, again, rightfully so, the visceral reaction of the king's reaction when he finds out that his son is died and murdered.
That we find out. Yeah, we find out that in episode 2, titled Rhaenyra the Cruel, directed by Claire Kilner and written by Sarah Hess. He learns about Jaehaerys's murder. Aegon, what's really interesting, I didn't catch until I was reading on Reddit earlier, is that what he's actually smashing his father's model of Westeros.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really, I didn't even catch that connection. It's kind of like a out with the old, in with the new. Like this event is, we're past the time of peace, because that was something that his father loved so much, you know. And then we see more of Hightower's planning, where they, you know, already, as opposed to everybody mourning, literally the morning of, they're like, all right, how can we use this death to our advantage? And then they're planning the procession to parade this poor child's body, who they had found blood, because they found him trying to escape with the child's head. So they're detailing how they're going to do this procession, and that they're going to call out Rhaenyra in the streets, and that they're going to show her the cruelty of what she has done. And then that's exactly what they did. They literally go down the street, and you hear that there's like some herald, you know, this is the work of Rhaenyra the Cruel, and that's what starts the gossip that's spread throughout the realm. What I thought was weird is at the end they give us the scene, and I think it's twofold, where, you know, the procession gets stuck, and you're seeing the head rock back and forth, but they never show you. But I think it alludes to some horrific scene of possibly the child's head falling off. But it also is a testament to Aegon not taking care of the city. Like there's streets that need to be repaired. There are things that he's not paying attention to while all these other things are going on. But I thought it was just interesting that they took the time to show us getting stuck, and then you literally see the body rock back and forth, but you never see it fully decapitate. Some other strong moments from this episode is the whole scene between Rhaenyra and Daemon, where when she finds out and she calls him out, and she has this realization of who he is as a person, and finding out that he did order this thing, and that basically he left it open-ended, that if they didn't find Aemon, that they were to take, you know, they were to get his other son, you know, a son, as we've been told, a son for a son. And that whole scene I just thought was perfectly executed. Just the whole back and forth with her, and then you can see in the conversation like how she just realizes that, you know, that her father was right, that she should have never have trusted him, and that's where her mistake was, is trusting him in the first place and giving him these chances. And you even see her reflect on past choices she made. He's like, well, didn't I do this for you? And she's like, yeah, but right before you put me into this position where I had to make that decision. I wouldn't have had to make that had you not done these things. And, you know, she ends with calling him pathetic, and, you know, Daemon fucks off to somewhere in the realm. Once again, we see Sir Criston Cole is a little bitch, and
I feel like that's going to be the theme for the whole season.
Yeah, I fucking hate
Sir
him.
Criston Cole, that little bitch. Yeah.
He is a bitch. He sent the twin, basically sent that kid off to his death. He knew what was going to happen. Did he really think that boy would succeed? No, he's trying to make up for the fact that he didn't do his job, which is exactly what happens. He calls him out. He goes, oh yeah, I wasn't there. I was actually with the king. Hold on, bitch. Where were you? Where were you? What or who were you doing?
What was funny was that the king even asked him that, like the morning of or the night of his son's murder, and he was, where were you? And he bed. And it's like, well, he wasn't wrong.
Wasn't lying. I was sleeping with your mom.
He was in bed, just not his own.
Yeah, I was in your mom's bed, actually.
What? Nothing?
Nothing?
I
What?
said nothing.
I said nothing. But then
that
even, you know, he tells the king about his plan, and Aegon sees it as a positive thing. But then, not even detailing, looking at everything that's happened in a whole, he kicks out Otto Hightower as the hand and makes this bitch the hand for no reason. Look, he's taking action. No, he's fucking you up. He's making things worse.
What I find interesting of him doing is that what's the guy's name again?
Sir Criston Cole.
Thank you. Sir Criston Cole is failing upwards.
Yeah.
Like he keeps getting promoted, and he's not making the right decisions, but yet to the right people, he is making the right decisions, and therefore he is looking good in one eyes, and obviously to us he is doing all the wrong things, but yet to the kingdoms of Westeros and to the Red Keep is what they call it, he is doing a fine job to the people he needs to do that. And he keeps, even though he got promoted, and he's like, no, I don't want to do that. And then he just goes sleeps with his mom again. So, so there's that. Yeah. But I quickly want to go back to the point we're talking about the wagon.
Yes.
Like it almost felt like, I agree with you, maybe not the head coming off, but it almost felt like that the whole body was going to come off the wagon. Like it got stuck, and unfortunately it didn't go that way, because it felt like it was like something bad was going to happen. But I think the end result of that was that she was just having a panic attack. Like she was not prepared within her grieving process to deal with all these people also grieving with her, and she's like, no, I don't want any of this. But it's like, this is what you have to do for the kingdom, and blah blah blah. But yeah, I do think that it definitely felt like it was going in a different direction than it actually did. So yeah, so there was that. But yeah, the right? Did I say that right again? Sir Christian Cole. Sir Christian Cole. Yeah. He's not doing anyone any favors. And I remember seeing a meme, which is one of the ones that came across, is like, how do you make this? How do you, like? I feel like each week, they go in the writers' room, is like, how do we make Sir Christian Cole less likable? Yeah. And I was like, yeah, no, they do a pretty good job. At least 2 episodes in, making him all the less likable. And we actually didn't mind him in the first season, from my understanding.
Well,
like he wasn't like the best.
He left Rhaenyra because he didn't want to be her whore, and now he's Queen Alicent's whore. So what is he doing?
I do feel like that is, but right, the compliments to great writing. They're posing an interesting character for us to watch.
Yes,
kind of like, here's all the things that he's doing wrong. He literally sent the other guy to go after Rhaenyra, then therefore fighting his twin brother, to therefore sacrificing himself because he could not bear that he was unable to protect the queen, which was Rhaenyra. So like, his actions definitely has, like, we see his rule, his command, and his actions go through in many different ways. And I feel like that's just as much as we don't like him, it sets up for an interesting character nonetheless. But all of that, I really enjoyed the first 2 episodes. I do feel like, in a way, for me, watching House of Dragon, and really all of Game of Thrones, is like, it's really a show that, like, it's not always the best thing to watch, because in some cases, like, there's a lot going on. It's sometimes it's slow, but like, you gotta let this show cook, because when it gets there, like, these moments matter. These little situations, big or small, matter, because when we get to the really, really big ones, and if done correctly, it culminates into something really, really, like, great television. And so, like, I feel like in some cases, like, especially with a show like this, like, not every episode for me, but like, it's doing the cooking. You got, it's a weird analogy, but it's like Thanksgiving. It's not going to come out, and you got to let it sit for a minute, and then eventually you get a nice.
Gotta let that flavor soak in.
Exactly, and then once you start eating that turkey, it's like, damn, this is great. This is great TV. So, like, I'm always not on board for everything that's happening, and I do feel like I always get confused what's going on. But I think for me, anyway, like, you brought up a couple of points, like, I think this is a good way for me to retain the information and go along with what's going on within this week-to-week viewing. Exactly. Especially having the conversation with you.
Yeah. I think the only thing we didn't mention was, they did capture blood in the book. They made apparently they torture him for over 13 days. Wow. After he reveals that information, so they spared us from that. Aegon hangs. We learned that a rat catcher is what helped him. Aegon hangs all the rat catchers for everybody to see. Yep. And I didn't see exact mentionings, but there were some Reddit forums online that say that the character who we see approach the square in the beginning of that scene, that character comes back into the fold later on. But actually, I think that's Hugh. That's the blacksmith. Is who discovers him. But we're gonna.
Oh, I see.
But I don't remember that. I don't remember off the top of my head. I'd have to go back and rewatch it. But I think we've gotten a solid, strong first 2 episodes. A nice good start to the season. I'm in. I'm fully in, and I'm also gonna start in companion to watching the show week to week. I'm gonna be reading Fire and Blood, but it's a 25-hour audiobook, so we'll see how far I get compared to the end of the season. I mean, who knows? I'm already slowly but surely trucking along.
Yeah, and I believe, as opposed to so this season only has 8 episodes, as the normal 10 that Game of Thrones typically has. So we have another 6. So we have another 6 to go. We're just in the start of it, and it's already renewed for a 3rd season. So yeah, I am on board. I agree with you. I think this is the first, is a good solid start to the House of Dragon season 2, and I'm looking forward to see what each episode brings as well. And for me, this really helps for me if you guys are also listening to us or watching us and kind of following along with the House of Dragon story. I often go to a YouTuber named Think Story, and he does great breakdown videos, and that seems to help me kind of understand some of the scenes that may be going on within this world. Was that all we got?
Yeah, I think that's all I got. I'm excited to see episode 3 this week, and next week we'll sit down and just talk about episode 3.
But yeah, all right. So there you go. So that is all we've been watching, and now we're going to be diving into our spoiler review of The Bikeriders. Again, written, directed by Jeff Nichols, starring Jodie Comer, Austin Butler, and Tom Hardy. It's a film that is kind of loosely based on a true story for the most part. So anyway, Ernesto, we'll start with you. What were your thoughts on the film?
You were going to say what you was watching.
I was going to say that. I paused.
I felt it. I wanted to like this movie more than I actually did. I thought it was beautiful to look at. I think they gave us some good scenes between good character moments, especially certain characters, they get their monologue moment, kind of revealing why, kind of showcasing why they're an outlaw, why they're not. Michael Shannon is a perfect example. He was an outlaw because he really wanted to go and serve in Vietnam, but they wouldn't take him for obvious reasons. He was it's not a clean. What did he call? Did he say they were pink holes? Is that what he called them? You remember?
I don't remember. There was in his opinion, a really silly reason why he was not able to go on to the army.
Yeah, he wasn't a clean cut guy, so they wouldn't. Yeah. That was his interpretation of it. So we get these little vignettes of all these characters, and it's told through Danny Lyons interviewing Jodie Comer about the motorcycle gang. I think excuse me. I think it would have been better if the whole movie was from Danny Lyons' perspective, since it is about his photo book about the Bikeriders. Or about the outlaws. I think, I was reading an article online that at a certain, he had actually entrenched himself into the motorcycle club. He actually became a member. He was inspired by Hunter S. Thompson, who rode with Hell's Angels, and Hunter S. Thompson actually wrote him a letter when he was doing it, telling him not to stay away from them, and I think those two things alone are really interesting. But the reason they did it is because they felt that Kathy, who's Jodie Comer's, I believe is her name, Kathy, Jodie Comer's character.
Yes, Kathy.
That she was always the best storyteller of the book of the group. She always had the most information for him. I just felt like we would have got a better narrative about what he was trying to achieve through his photo book if we had seen it through his eyes. And then kind of very similar like Civil War, maybe throughout the movie, when we hit those moments where he takes a photo, then you could incorporate the real photo like in that moment. To me, I felt like it would have hit a little bit harder. I just wasn't as connected to the movie as I really wanted to be. I think Austin Butler, I actually expected more. Like he was there, but like he was more of like a brooding like background character.
Yeah.
You know, it was more about Jodie Comer, Kathy, and it was about Tom Hardy and kind of like the different character of like all the characters of the motorcycle gang. You know, and yeah, I mean, I just kind of wanted a little bit more.
No, I 100% agree with you. But you know what's funny? Because I was just looking at the trivia just now, and I was like, why does Jeff Nichols sound so familiar? Like we had brought up his name, no, probably like not too long ago, but like for something else, and by something that he hasn't done. And then I figured it out that Jeff Nichols was originally supposed to be, he was the original director for A Quiet Place Day One, and he left that film to direct this one. So that's fine. It's kind of funny that he kind of left that movie, and now that movie is coming out literally around the same time that the Bikeriders comes out. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. But I do like your perspective on if this movie was through the perspective of the reporter rather than Jodie Comer character as Kathy, as the storyteller. I do feel like that might have had some more, what's the word? Like, because it was inspired by the picture book, and because like seeing the story through his eyes, told through his, sorry?
Like more weight to the story?
Yes, it definitely would have held more weight to the story, absolutely. But instead we were hearing it through Kathy instead. And honestly, I mean, she was the best part about that movie, in my opinion. Yeah. Like the way that we got her story involved, how she got involved with it, how much that she had like a love-hate relationship with like the biker gang. She respected the community, but only for up until a certain point. I do agree with you. Austin Butler definitely felt like a background character here. He was a man of a few words, and we didn't really know anything about his character at the end of the day. Like we're told what he should be between Tom Hardy as Johnny and Jodie Comer as Kathy. Like Kathy and Johnny were telling Austin Butler, who played Benny, like Kathy and Johnny were telling what Benny should be, and Benny's like, I don't want to be either one of those, and then he just leaves.
It's like, I'm gone.
Like, I'm gone. Like I don't want to deal with any of this.
And did his foot like magically healed? Like towards the end of the movie, I was like, it was a thing, and then it's like, well, I'm gonna keep riding, and then we just never addressed it, or like he just didn't have a limp anymore. Like he was like good. And once they figured out that he was gonna keep riding, and it didn't matter that this grown man took a shovel and like basically severed his foot off, he was able to hop back on with no problem.
Yeah, I definitely feel like they were playing with time. They were moving quite a bit with that. So yeah, I feel like some of the better moments were obviously when Kathy was telling her stories and we were seeing it intercut with some of the scenes that were happening. I never really bought into the relationship between her and Benny. I think mainly because Austin Butler didn't really give us anything to go off of.
Exactly.
And I think you cared more about Johnny, Tom Hardy, on like, here's this guy who wanted to start a group of bikers, and then he did it. And you see some of the complications that he has as a leader. And I feel like that was, as in addition to Kathy telling her stories and the way she told her stories and some of the pains that she was having throughout the movie, I think what was even more compelling was Johnny and how he was the leader of the Vandals. And is the Vandals or the Outlaws? I think it was the Vandals.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And so you see how he is as a leader trying to run this biker gang, and you can see the turnover after many years of where it started and kind of his demise on how he ended up getting murdered. by maybe not letting the kid in, but also we were on his side for the reason why he didn't want, bring the kid in, and then he had this grudge for many years, and then ended up just shooting him point blank. And I feel like that was, if anything, was one of the more compelling parts of the story, because you can tell that for certain moments he actually cared about the people that was in his group, and even though he didn't want to expand, like for some reason, like he didn't want to expand the Vandals outside of the people that he knew. Eventually, he gave into that, but I think we saw some of the repercussions of that as well. But yeah, I think for me that Tom Hardy was that was the story.
I agree.
Like,
I agree. It just feels like the movie had a lot of missed opportunities, and it just feels like it's overcrowded in this summer release. Like the film was bumped from a December release, but I just don't feel like it fits well into the summer. Like it would have done well in some of the off-season months, and when there's not as much out. Like there's so many good movies that are out right now that this movie is kind of lost. For me, it's like in comparison to everything else that's out there, it's kind of like lost in the mix.
Yeah, I wonder if Focus Feature was trying to like give, like, all right, in the midst of all the blockbusters that are coming out, let's put out a movie that's the opposite of that, and maybe we'll get that crowd going into the theater instead during the summer. I think they're also kind of banking on the fact that you had Austin Butler coming off of his Academy and
Well, yeah.
Yes, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, from Elvis and Dune 2, like he was getting some big star power. So maybe they thought they could drive his star power and the success that he's been having into the Bikeriders, as well as Tom Hardy. I mean, Tom Hardy has been a known face in Hollywood for quite some time now, and he's been done a lot of crime dramas throughout his career. So again, this isn't a crime drama, but it kind of fits in that same vein of like a drama. And so yeah, so they felt like those two big stars, and Jodie Comer, who has not done huge films, but she did have some success in being in the movie Free Guy, The Last Duel, and obviously her long run with Killing Eve. That ran on, I believe, AMC. Mm-hmm. Where did that run? Yeah. AMC for 4 seasons. Yeah, 4 seasons. So like that's where she's been around for a while. But maybe they figured that, okay, we're getting the older audience to come in and watch this movie. I think obviously they showed up in a way. I don't know what the budget was for this movie, but it made $10 million in the box office. So like I feel like that's a sizable amount. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Yeah. Almost. That's actually less than that. $9.6 million domestically, another 3.9 internationally, a grand total of 13.6 worldwide. So obviously not shattering numbers, but I don't think this movie was ever expected to be. And yeah, okay, yeah, that's what I thought. So it had a budget of between $30 to $40 million. So clearly it's coming in way under that. Within its first week. I don't know if it has the staying power, especially with Inside Out 2 crushing it, and A Quiet Place Day 1 coming in right in the next week. Yeah. So it doesn't look like it's going to be hitting a profit. I'm sure this movie is going to hit Peacock sooner rather than later. But to your point, it definitely felt like they could have maybe hold off. If you already were going to delay the movie, you might as well wait until the fall.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if you're looking for this at the Oscars, but
maybe Jodie Comer. Maybe
Jodie Comer. Like honestly, like between Jodie Comer and Tom Hardy, like they had really, really good performances. And like to me, if anyone, Jodie Comer had the best performance in the movie.
I agree.
And if this movie was in the Oscars, conversation, would have been in the Oscar conversation last year, I would have said that Jodie Comer had a good shot of either getting a nom. After seeing the movie, I do feel like that if Universal and Focus Features wanted to push this movie, I feel like that she has a good chance of getting a nom. Because honestly, out of all the movies I've seen this year, there's not a few that I've been considering for Oscars contention. I think so far for me has been Dune Part 2 for all of its technical work and some of its performances. as well as Inside Out 2 for being such a great movie and probably a shoo-in for at least a nom for the Academy Awards next year. So there's not a lot of movies I've seen that kind of like, all right, let me start thinking about Oscars right now. But now I feel like that Jodie Comer is the first person that I've seen this year be like, yeah, I can see her getting nominated for an Oscar for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do agree with you. I feel like there was some sort of a disconnect with the story, that I feel like the story could have been much stronger. And I think this was character driven 100% because we were following a lot of characters. But not a lot of them kind of held the weight of an emotional level that we were maybe able to connect to. And I think it faltered in maybe its direction. And it did move. I don't know about you, but it moved really slow for me.
Yeah, it was really slow.
I feel like we were just watching the events kind of play out without really any like rhyme or reason for it.
Yep.
So
I agree. I'm with you 100%. I just, it's sad because I really wanted to like this movie more than I did. That's really what it came down to. Yeah.
Again, I know we kind of already did it, but your final thoughts on the Bikeriders?
I wanted more for it. I will say that I do, you know, as with any period piece, it is nice to see the attention to detail with the costume design and production design. So two things. I read a note from the costume designer about the patches. They were saying that every patch was designed and then aged, sewed on, and then aged again, so that they didn't have to deal with copyright. So all the patches, they didn't buy them. They all had, every patch for every shot was made specifically for the costume. So they're a huge testament to the costume design. Also, they had to have an insurance person on set because of so many people riding motorcycles without helmets on.
Oh, wow.
Like that was an actual thing that was a real issue, that they were really worried about people riding motorcycles without their helmets on for obvious reasons. So I thought that was the, you know, kind of cool nods to the production of the film. Final thoughts. I really wanted to like it more. I really wanted a deeper story. I think there's a missed opportunity from telling it from Danny Lyon's perspective, the guy who made the photo book. Like, if we could have there are some lines and some shots that are copied directly from the photo book, but if we would have gotten more of that, it almost like in Civil War, like when they take the picture, like you're kind of like, instead of showing us the film characters, show us the actual real characters from the photo book. So it just links the moment of the project that made you want to make this movie in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I like that idea from the movie. Like, I like your idea that could have been in the movie.
Yeah.
But
so as far as a rating, I'm actually gonna give it 2 stars.
2?
Yeah, I was floating between it. You know what? I'm gonna go 2.5 just because for the costume design.
I thought, wow. I mean, for me, hearing that 2 is rather low.
Yeah, it was not that great.
I think I was landing between a 2.5 and a 3 because I like Jodie Comer's performance. I think she was very captivating in her performance, but like it's kind of like I'm trying to pick out all the good things I liked about it, and the story just didn't hit the way that I wanted it to. So I can meet you with 2.5.
Okay.
As well. It's like it just didn't hit the mark of what this movie could have been, even though I don't really have anything to compare it to. It just wasn't as captivating as, you know, as the story suggested. Like, we're following this group of a biker gang, and at the end of the day, it just really wasn't that interesting. At least the way that it was told wasn't that interesting.
Yeah.
But the positives that I do like about it was definitely Jodie Comer's performance and Tom Hardy's performance, and those were the 2 most compelling characters in the bunch. I think like Jodie Comer offered some sort of levity as well as some emotional weight to the film, and then Tom Hardy was all emotional the entire time. You have this rugged, character that just really just wanted to be part of something, and now he was more or less dealing with the consequences of what that entails. But also you can see him banding these group of people together to now feel like they belong somewhere. And you can see that he really held true to that, especially with the character of Cockroach, where he wanted to be out of the gang, but these new members were probably going to kill him for wanting to leave the biker group. So instead, he staged a scenario where he shot his leg and where he could no longer ride anymore. But then we also see in the end credits that it looks like he was doing just fine and, you know, wanted to be a cop and riding a motorcycle. So I guess that was just a way for to get him out. But yeah, I thought that those two characters offered a lot to the film, but they can only do so much when all the other factors were not hitting the mark. Again, the story ends up being uninterested, and I was really kind of surprised with how much I really did not care about Austin Butler's performance in this movie. It didn't, like, I agree with you, very much in the background, very like kind of brooding. It's like, oh, I don't want to do that. I just want to ride my bike. Yeah, it's what I want to. I don't want to be the leader of this band. Sorry, no, the band. I don't want to be the leader of this group. Not me. No,
I can't do it.
I don't want. Can't do it, Rick. But yeah, like he didn't do much for me. So, yeah, I don't know. This he made a choice, and I don't think it landed. But yeah, 2.5 stars in the Bikeriders. Maybe we might be seeing this again for maybe some Oscar contention, but the lack of conversations around the movie, like it kind of like I feel like it was kind of fueled a little bit when it got, you know, when it was about to come out. I think the momentum was there in the fall, and then it got pushed back, and now it's, you know, I think people had already seen it already through festivals, and like I'm really curious to see come, you know, next award season if this movie's even in the conversation at all. And I'll be a little bit surprised if at least Jodie Comer isn't mentioned. But for obvious reasons, if it ends up not being in the conversation, we can also see why that wasn't the case either. So there you go. That's our spoiler review on the Bikeriders, not the movie we were expecting, but you know, it happens sometime. Not all the movies are going to be winners when we pick them. So there you go. But with that is all the show we have for you guys this week. But before we send off, Ernesto, tell our lovely listeners what we can look forward to next week.
So this time for real, we are going to be reviewing Yorgos Lanthimos' movie. It's been highly praised at Cannes. Jesse Plemons won Best Actor for his performance in this movie. Yorgos Lanthimos' new movie, Emma Stone. Also, William Dafoe is back to return. I'm curious. I'm kind of excited. You know, there's a lot of buzz surrounding this movie. You know, he won the Oscars last year. This is what I think probably an early Oscar contender for next year. So I'm curious to see what comes of it. So that'll be a review for next week. This movie is 2 hours and 45 minutes, almost 3 hours long, which we'll see. What was Poor Things? Poor Things wasn't that long. It's probably just over 2.
I think it was 2.5 hours. I think Poor Things was. But to give credit to Yorgos, that it was a long movie, but he gave us one hell of a movie. It was 2 hours and 20 minutes. Was Poor Things.
Okay.
So
we got another 20 minutes.
This one's 20 minutes added along. He's always given us interesting movies, and I think Poor Things really ignited my curiosity with him. It's like, yeah, you made it. You made a weird film, but if anything we learned from the last movie was that there is a deep message hidden within there. And so that's what I'm hoping to get out of this one. And yes, we did say, if you listened to our episode last week, we did say that we were going to be reviewing Kinds of Kindness, but what we did not realize at the time was that they pushed the movie back by a week. So we did a small pivot. We decided to do the Bikeriders, and we did that, and now we're ready to once again talk about the Kinds of Kindness. So hopefully this is another either masterpiece or a great movie out of Yorgos with Kinds of Kindness, but I guess we'll find out next week. So with that, if you want more from us, you can always follow us on our social media channels on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok at Box Office Bingers, our X and Letterboxd page at Box Office Binger, and our Instagram and Threads page at Box Office_Bingers. That is the place where you can find all of the latest and breaking news, as well as our Movie Showdown Mondays, our new to stream every Fridays, our lovely faces on the YouTube pages, the TikTokies, the Facebooks. We're all there. Little short reels for you guys. Yeah, it's all there. The movie fun continues over on those social media channels. So if you're not following us by now, which I say this every week, but it's important, people.
It bears being reminded.
Exactly. If you haven't done so already, do us a favor, do that. We really do appreciate it. And that's the show we have for you guys this week. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for listening to us just talk about movies. We really do appreciate that. And we have a lot of fun doing it. And we're going to continue doing it because it's just the right thing to do.
Yeah.
It feels right.
It
You know what I mean?
Right.
It feels right. All right. So come back next week for more movie fun. You're not going to regret it. And for that, I've been your host, Matt Diaz.
Ernesto Santos. See ya.